Welcome back. Hello, good evening to all of you. We're going to give it a few minutes for some more people to join us, and then we're going to disclose the topic of tonight's live, which actually one person got right on the question that I posted earlier, which I was super impressed with, since I was like, is anybody gonna be able to figure it out? And one person was able to figure out today's topic. Good evening, Val. So I'm going to tell you what motivated me to do today's topic in a couple of seconds. But I just want to start off by saying, actually, the topic of tonight's live, I got many requests to do it over the last few months. But it was a topic that I was really hesitating discussing because it can be very personal to some people. It can, some people may not like it that much. So I wanted to really stay away from this topic until I had a discussion with somebody today, which really put into me the need to come out and have this very important conversation in which we can have maybe some sort of better understanding of the values and importance of family dynamics, family relationships. And before I went on this live, many times when I do a live or any type of a Facebook show, I don't really like to prepare too much for it because I like to come on and just, whatever God puts in my mind to say, I freely just say it because I feel comfortable enough to do that. However, today, I was really careful in what I will want to share as far as making sure that whatever we discuss today is really for the purpose of family peace and family dynamics. So as I was sitting in my car earlier today, I jotted down a few notes, and we're going to go over a few of these special parts that I think are important to discuss. If you have anything interesting, put it in your comments during this conversation, and we will try to maybe go over that as well. So welcome to everybody who just joined. And today's topic is brother-in-law, sister-in-law. Such an important, interesting, kind of hits the home button for so many, because in almost every single family, there is some sort of a misunderstanding, I'm going to say, between a sister-in-law, brother-in-law. There's some sort of a misunderstanding in which it causes a little bit more drama than necessary, and eventually leads to having many different issues that come out of it. Welcome, Bella, Malka, Anna. So nice to have you join me. So what triggered today's live? I got a phone call from a lady, and this phone call really, truly touched me. She says the following. She says, it's very hard for me to open up because the truth is I keep my family stuff very personal. But I came to the realization that if I don't open up and I don't ask you to please talk about the importance of family dynamics and relationships, we won't be able to make an outreach of this very important yet sensitive topic. So I asked the lady, what is this topic? She says, my husband and I have 5 children. And when our children were very small, the most important lesson we instilled in our children was, number 1, respect for parents. They really grew up to be amazing children who have a lot of respect for us. And number 2, love for each other and their siblings. And as they were growing up, our children would do anything for each other. It was so important for them to know that at any time, if any brother or sister needed their help, they were willing to drop everything to go and help out at the moment that is needed. And life was so amazing. And my husband and I were so proud that we accomplished in raising such strong, solid children. And then I said to her, so what happened after that? She said, shortly after, our kids got married. And with every wedding celebration, it felt to us that we were gaining a son, we were gaining a daughter. And we tried our best to be on the best terms possible with our daughter-in-laws, our son-in-laws. We always invited them together. We made sure no one felt left out. We made sure, me and my husband, that we were going to help everyone equally. So no one ever feels like we do more for one and not the other. Then this lady continued with her story and said, however, we had a situation. A couple of years ago, two of our daughter-in-laws did not get along. And at first it seemed that it's a normal process. Things happen. People don't always get along. And we tried not to take sides and we tried to be neutral about the situation. But as time went by, their relationship started to get more distant and even more toxic. They were not allowing their children to play with each other. They were not even able to sit together at the same table if we ever would invite them to together. It was almost like, who's coming? Oh, she's coming? I'm not going to come to your house. And then it really was the straw that broke the camel's back when the brothers got involved. And the brothers were so involved to the point where they themselves were no longer able to talk to each other. And me and my husband, she says, came to this very, very hard truth that our children, who we raised with the morals of peace and being there for one another, were at terms where they were no longer even able to come to our house together for a Shabbat meal. And it makes me so emotional remembering these mothers' words and looking and just hearing the pain of her sharing this story and understanding to myself, I don't have children who are married. I am not in her shoes, but I understand how hard I work as a mother to instill in my children the values of loving one another, the values of being there for one another. And if my children get married, and that's supposed to be the happiest moment of my life, but if the marriage of my children will cause the destruction of the relationship between the siblings, where now they have made a marriage, but they have destroyed a family, I'm not sure as a parent how I would be able to look at this situation. And then I remembered that over the last couple of days, I get a lot of messages, a lot of private messages. And if I only told you how many of those messages are related to the issue of a sister-in-law not getting along with a sister-in-law, or a brother-in-law, doesn't happen as often, but there are situations like that too. Most of the time, there is some sort of a dilemma, some sort of a problem in the understanding between a sister-in-law with one another, which becomes really toxic. And I think every single family can relate to this concept in some shape or form. And then it makes you wonder, why is this problem so common? What is the cause of this disconnect? And not only is there a disconnect, it's almost like there is some sort of tension where people can't seem to get past their own differences. People can't seem to be genuinely happy for one another. People seem to want to have the life of the other person or to compare themselves to the other person. And I think you're right, Ksenia. A lot of it has to do with ego and exactly jealousy. Now I decided that rather than focusing on what can be the problem, let us focus on what do we do about this situation so that another mother doesn't have to go through what this poor mother had to go through with seeing her own children come to the point where they can no longer talk to one another because the wives couldn't get along, and they have added so much negativity that they have influenced their husbands that they are no good for one another. Now let me go over the points that I think we need to walk away with, because figuring out everybody's personal situation is difficult. It's hard to really know why people do the things they do because it's individual in every situation. But let's walk away with what we should never do if that happens. Before I tell you what we should never do, I'm going to share with you another story, which is really a crazy story, which I heard many years ago. And today I will share the story because I think the story is going to relate to our conversation. Sometimes we think, well, how bad can it be? If you've never had it bad, you are lucky, and that's great. But some people's situations are really bad. A lady calls me up, and this happened a couple of years back, and she says to me, I'm going through a very, very hard time. And I asked her, what's the problem? She says, when I got married into the family, I loved the family. They were really nice and accepting and loving. And I have a personality where I want to be at peace with everybody. I want to make everybody my really good close friends. Great, that's a great personality, but what's wrong with that? She said the problem was that I didn't realize that when I got into the family, one person in that family will never really get to love and accept me for who I really am as a person. And I thought maybe, just maybe, I could influence her to love me. If I'm so nice to her and super loving and I'll do everything, maybe she's going to see that there's really nothing to hate about me. One day, when I was very, very young, she says, in the beginning of my marriage, I did something which I probably shouldn't have done. It was a very childish thing. I said something negative about my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law heard it. She says I was wrong for speaking like that. But I would think that if I said something wrong, my sister-in-law is going to approach me. I'm not saying I was right. But I want to share with you what she ended up doing because of the fact that I spoke negatively about her. I said, was it really bad what you said? She said, it wasn't even so bad. Let me tell you what she did. I said, okay, I don't even know if I want to hear this, but please tell me what she did. Now, I don't know these people, so it's anonymous. I'd rather not know these stories unless I don't know who you are, because I don't want to have to think a certain way. It's very hard to hear these stories. And she says, my sister-in-law got upset that she heard me say something negative, and she decided she's going to prank me. And it was in the beginning of my marriage, and she said, you know what? I'm going to pay back. And this is the way she decided to pay back. I was sitting home waiting for my husband to come home. And all of a sudden, my house phone rings. She says it was very strange that it wasn't my cell phone, it was my house phone, because not that many people know my house number. I answer my house phone, and on the other end of the phone is another lady. The lady answers back, and I said, hello, who is this? And the lady very rudely tells me to give the phone over to my husband, she says. And she says, give the phone, let's say his name was David. Give the phone to David. And I said, who are you? I thought maybe it's a telemarketer, but that's not how they talk. And when I asked her, who are you? She said, none of your business. Give the phone to David. And then I asked her again, excuse me, who are you? She used a very, very inappropriate word on her comeback to me. And she said, which I can't say on air, give the phone to him right now, you, guess the word. She said, at that moment, I realized this is something that's being set up. And I realized that somebody's trying to hurt my relationship with my husband. I quickly hung up the phone and my heart was racing. And I thought to myself, my husband and I have a very good marriage. We love each other so much. Who is on the other end of this call that is planning to ruin my marriage? And I thought to myself, but who would know my phone number? Because if my husband truly had somebody that he was doing things with behind my back, would he really have that person call my house? He wouldn't be that dumb. He would have that person call his cell phone. So the first thing I knew at that moment was, this person is trying to make sure I, the wife, hear this conversation, she said. She said, after thinking for a little bit, it dawned on me that it has to be somebody close. It has to be somebody who knows my phone number. And I was able to figure out that this was done by my own family member. And I said, did you ever confront? Was it confirmed? She said, yes. She admitted that it was her that did it because she was so upset with what I said. And she wanted to take revenge. Now, revenge comes in all shapes, forms, and sizes. Revenge to break up a marriage? Revenge to go this low as to be able and capable to destroy somebody's family because somebody said something you weren't happy with? And I said, so how did you react after that happened to you? She said, what I decided to do was, I decided to forgive. I decided I'm going to be the better person. I said, okay, that's great. How did you find space to forgive her? She said, I decided to say to myself, you know what? There's no point in me holding a grudge because this is going to be my family member. This is somebody I have to learn to accept. So every single time I used to go to her and I used to tell her I'm sorry anytime I said something wrong. And I would try to fix my relationship. I would try to do everything possible to get her to like me because I wanted to be liked. And I said, did she like you? She said, no matter what I ever did, it would always result in something else that I was doing wrong. And every time we made up, there was something else I did wrong that she would have to fight about. To the point, she says, where today we can no longer talk to each other. And she told me the reason she was sharing her story with me is because she learned at that moment the importance of a boundary. She learned at that moment that it was not right to keep going and keep trying to be friendly and keep trying to push yourself into the life of a person who simply is communicating with you that they are not interested in having you a part of it. Sometimes the best form of peace is just hi, bye, wish people well. Allow yourself to still be able to go to each other's houses. When you see the relationship is fragile to begin with, and you're constantly working on fixing it, sometimes you burn it. Sometimes it's gone completely. So sometimes the best peace is holding your distance, is holding your boundaries. Because if there were proper boundaries, maybe this mother, who they're not even related, by the way, but maybe this mother would also have her children still communicating with one another. Maybe we wouldn't lose family members over repetitive drama, which just doesn't end. Drama will go on for the rest of our life. Drama is going to be done when two people refuse to walk away from a negative situation. It takes only one smart person to say, I am better, I am smarter, I am more mature, than to constantly fight back. Because there are people that you will never prove your point with. And the reason being, some people are very unhappy with themselves. Some people are so insecure that to see someone else happy is their biggest threat. To see someone else flourishing is the biggest threat. To see someone else have what they don't have is the biggest threat. And when that happens, it goes out of hand. So the point that I want to walk away with is as follows. If there's a relationship in which family members are not getting along, and sister-in-laws or brother-in-laws are not getting along, the first thing that I want to talk about and stress again is the importance of holding a healthy boundary. Hold your boundary. Boundary doesn't mean don't talk to each other, forget about each other, don't go to each other's parties. That's not a boundary. Boundary, in my opinion, means, hi, how are you? Smile. Okay, everybody's good? Yes. Walk away. You get invited to their occasion, go, congratulate them, sit, help, go home, walk away. Boundary. Don't overly share your personal life with people who don't need to know your personal life. Because as much as you think people are always happy for all the good that comes your way, let me tell you, it's not always the truth. You need to really know who you share your stories with. The second thing that I think is very, very, very important to mention is not involving the siblings in your drama and dilemma. If a brother-in-law or a sister-in-law cannot get along with one another, you cannot instill the toxicity to the sisters or brothers of the family because it's not fair to them. You can't get along with one another. You have a problem with one another. Don't break up a relationship between a brother, a sister, a brother with a brother, a sister with a sister. But they are not the ones who need to now pay the price. Allow them to still be able to love each other. Don't keep talking gossip because you are breaking up families. And you know what? Like somebody said before, karma does exist. And in Hebrew it's called Mida Keneged Mida. You think today what you're doing is not going to come back tomorrow? You think the children who are being raised in such families are not going to think that this is the norm? For my brother not to talk, for my father not to talk to his brother, for my mother not to talk to her sister. You think that these children that are growing up are not going to think that this is normal? That doesn't work like that. So if you can't get along with one another, don't instill hate on your children between the cousins. Don't instill hate that your children need to now go and not be able to talk to their cousins, because that is not the proper thing to do. The next thing I think is very important is to learn to set aside your differences for the family's sake, which means if you are invited to an occasion, remember something. People around you are watching. If you decide that you no longer want to participate in any occasion and you feel that you are no longer coming, that it's okay, you are actually causing a lot of embarrassment to the family. It's not for everybody to see your personal problems. At some point we have to all say to ourselves, you know what? We will go and support the family, even though it's hard. We don't have to necessarily sit at the same table or communicate, but for the sake of the family, we're going to go and be part of the family occasions. It should not be that the whole family should be penalized for our differences. I'm trying not to respond to some people's comments because I think it's just there to disrupt me, and it's okay, because when we try to really be passionate about a topic and some people think it's cute to come on and just disrupt and just add 2 cents, which really has no purpose in any of the conversation, it's really you knowing that you're doing the right thing. And I'm gonna go off a little bit on a tangent. When the Yetzer Hara is seeing that a certain topic is very important, he doesn't want us to discuss it, because the truth is it's going to help so many people. So the Yetzer Hara is going to try to bring somebody or something or a certain situation to try to block the topic from flourishing, because it's not the topic that he wants people to talk about. So many times we need to understand that things always happen for a reason. And I'm so happy this happened, because I know that this is exactly what we need to talk about. So thank you for that. Another one, let's see what else we wrote here. Let's have a no competition mentality. Let's really, truly love one another. We are all related, we're family. And when one person in the family is doing well, let's truly be happy for that person. Let's truly just say, why not? If this person can succeed and be successful, isn't that my pride and joy? Let's truly say to ourselves, when things are going well for someone, that it's not because it's a competition or something against us. Be happy. If your sister-in-law's husband went and bought her a gift, be happy for her. First of all, to add to that, don't overly share everything that happens, because it's not always a good thing. But if you didn't share and the person found out that this good deed happened to you, be happy for that person. This has nothing to do with you if your husband doesn't act like her husband, because her husband has certain qualities which your husband doesn't have, and vice versa. So love your own husband, be happy with whatever happens to you, and it's not a competition. That's the other thing. Focus on our own family, on our own children. When we live a life where we're busy looking at our own family, at our own children, we don't have time for drama. We don't really have time to go and try to make other people's lives miserable. So if everybody starts to focus on their own families, they're not going to have time to make somebody else's life miserable. So focusing on our own family is very, very important. And most of all, working on our character of jealousy. If people really worked in general on their time, because when you see a problem in somebody else, many times there's some problem within yourself, within ourselves. Because when there's something within ourselves that we're not happy about, we see that same negative flaw in somebody else. So if somebody else isn't really like it's touching a nerve every time for us unintentionally, let's look deep within ourselves to see, why is this person's behavior touching so many nerves? So obviously there's something within ourselves that we're lacking or we have to work on, and that is the reason we are bothered by anything that's happening to that other person. So that concludes the topic for today. I think we discussed very important points for anybody who's joining right now To summarize, we basically spoke about the differences of sister-in-laws or brother-in-laws and how common those differences are and how they can become, toxic. The importance of being at peace, being able to say hello to each other, but at the same time, holding your boundary, not overly trying to keep being friendly over and over again when we see that there is absolutely no room for friendship, because it can backfire and it can cause such a problem that you will no longer even going to be able to sit together at a dinner table. To not allow our drama go to the other people in our families. We have disagreements within each other. That's between us and the other person. We don't have the right to constantly go and keep telling our husband or our wife, and then they end up breaking their relationship with the siblings. Don't teach your children to hate their cousins. Don't tell your children you're not going to go play with this and this person because you can't like this person. This is not the proper way to educate our children. So I'm going to wait a few more minutes for any comments so that we can discuss. And then that's basically the whole live. And I'm really excited that I was able to address it, even though I'll be very honest, it was nerve-wracking because it's a sensitive topic for many. And you always try to say, you want to be neutral, but at the same time, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings by accident. So it's not for anybody to take anything I said personally. It's simply just me sharing my thought process. Bella, thank you for joining me. I'm just going to drink some tea. Hold on. Never stop doing what you're doing for the community. And just remember, you are amazing. Oh my God, thank you so much. You're so sweet for saying that. I try not to get, I really truly tell myself not to pay attention because, there was actually somebody's very, very smart once told me the following. And I think it's worth sharing because it can help a lot of people. This person who is older and wiser told me the following statement, not related to this live. She said, when people talk about you, you're doing something right. And sometimes when we see like negativity or just, people just finding flaws and they don't even know you or they don't even have anything to do with you, it's almost like, wow, I must be doing something right if I entered this person's conversation or thought process. So when people talk about us, besides for it being a sin, right, we also have to be humbled in saying, you know what, I did something right. I entered the thought process of this person. This person took down 3 minutes of his time typing up a message, because that takes time and effort. I was important enough to get that message. So thank you. It really, truly means a lot. So that's the same thing. So many people will come in your life just like that and try to diminish your light and try to make you feel miserable. How will you respond to it? If you respond to it on the same level and platform where you're going to allow those thoughts to penetrate you, then you stoop down to their level. But when you say to yourself, not everybody is going to like me. Not everybody is going to accept me. I'm not everybody's flavor of tea, for example. Everybody's different, and that's okay too. With the same concept, we live our life. Everything I do is not going to be good for my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. Every choice I make, where I put my kids, what kind of house I move into, what kind of friends I choose to have, what kind of career I choose to have, they're not going to agree with everything. And that's okay. Because when you start to focus on what's good for you, your kids, and your husband, which are the most important people in your family, no one else matters. It becomes important. All right, so that is it for tonight's live. And absolutely, Diana, kill them with kindness. That's great. Thank you, Malka, so much. Thank you, Anna. I will definitely continue because there's so much positivity and so much love in the comments and feedbacks. You know, sometimes I really truly feel so grateful to have this platform and to have the ability to come out and have a conversation and share the thoughts, because even when I post the questions that I post, you know, the ones that people share and ask anonymously, there is so much that I can learn. This is why I love posting them, because there's so much that I learn from reading everybody's responses. Because so many people, there are so many brilliant people out there. They don't necessarily come out on social media platform like this and do lives. So when you read those comments, sometimes they're so brilliant, and it allows me to really truly learn. And when I learn so much, I'm able to gather all this information, and that really helps. And I'm sure a lot of people can say the same when they scroll down and they read, and it really, really helps. Thank you so much, Zalman. It really means a lot. I appreciate all your support. My husband has always been supportive, and that is truly a blessing. What did she write? Hold on one second. I want to read the comment. It's like running away. It's running away. It's not. Oh, I hope one day my husband's sister will realize what she did and still does to my family, thinking she will destroy our marriage. You know, the best thing I could tell you, besides holding boundaries, is praying. Really, like, prayer is really, really important. When you have a higher source and a higher power, whatever nationality, whatever religion you're a part of, and you really, like, when you have nobody to turn to, you just turn to prayer, and you really, number one, pray for that other person, because that person needs healing. If people act viciously, or they act in a way in which they're ready to do anything to hurt somebody else for no apparent reason, it really says a lot about that person. And that person needs healing. That person needs prayers. Because mental health diseases do exist. It's not just diabetes, heart disease, strokes. There's also depression, bipolar, personality disorders. They actually exist. And just like we pray for people's physical health, we also have to pray for people's mental health. That God should give them mental health and stability to be able to cure themselves, so that they can stop toxicity and negativity to others. So that will wrap it up. I'm going to look forward for your comments and feedbacks. As always, have a good night and Shabbat Shalom.